that the military was quite panicky about the fact that these weird things were going on in our airspaces and stories were getting out to the newspapers and the magazines. It may just be, from our perspective it's unfortunate, but they may just be far better at hiding these cases perhaps.
So many people who are fascinated with the UFO subject matter are just waiting, biting their nails, hoping that there'll be government disclosure on this eventually. Do you see that coming, Nick?
I hate to say this, but I think if there's going to be disclosure, it's because there's going to be a need for disclosure. In the event some sort of tremendous event or encounter will occur to the point where it'll be unable to be denied. Unfortunately, I don't see, unless that happens, I don't see what advantage there is to, President Bush or Tony Blair or somebody standing up and saying, hey guys, we lied for the last 60 years. I think it's going to take either an open landing of some sort or a reason why they need to come clean because, such a remarkable event's occurred. I think it's going to be something like that that's going to require government agencies to come forward.
I think Nick is absolutely right. Sorry, George. I think disclosure, this is where I differ from Steve. Steve believes disclosure is going to happen soon with this administration. I don't think this administration even knows, truly understands the UFO situation, because I think those above this administration, those above government, as Nick Redford has said, are holding it back. I don't know why they don't want us to know. I can't figure that out. I come up with 1,000 possible reasons, but I truly believe that they want to hold this back as much as they can. There's a fellow in Denver who's going to be on tomorrow, Jeff Peck. Jeff has been trying to get a ballot initiative in Denver, basically opening up a UFO organization. It's not successful. As a matter of fact, I think that it was passed on in the first go-round. I want you to hear a little bit of Jeff Peck, and you'll hear more about him tomorrow.
Now this is a fascinating proposal here. Tell me, how did it all come about?
Well, it came about as a result of hearing a former NASA expert disclosing a lot of declassified government documents which prove that yes, there is a cover-up of extraterrestrial evidence and UFO evidence. That was what really prompted me to take this action. But I'd already seen some very credible evidence, videotape footage of extraterrestrials in a Colorado ET encounter case that has very, very credible documented evidence, probably better than just about anything else. And that's going to be released more publicly in the next 2 to 8 weeks. But I saw that before in a smaller group meeting. And so I saw the evidence was there, and this gentleman from NASA concluded that he would, after the very inspiring, very insightful talk, he said, I don't think I'm going to see our government disclose this information in my lifetime. And I immediately thought, wait a minute, we are the government, and a ballot initiative gives the people the power to achieve things like this, especially at the local level. So that's how it came about.
Okay, now tell me how you're going to get the city fathers to accept this. What are you doing there?
Well, we would have to. If we get the 4,000 signatures, we submit that to the city. It goes through a couple of city council meetings, really just for review and to allow them to adopt the ordinance themselves. If they don't adopt the ordinance, it goes right onto the ballot. They have no choice in the matter. And then the people vote on it in November. And it goes into law.
All right, once it becomes, let's assume it becomes law, Jeffrey, then what happens? What will they create with this commission?
The commission will be selected, 11 commission members will be selected, appointed by the mayor. Then they have certain responsibilities such as gathering available evidence about extraterrestrial visits to Earth and their existence in general, providing that to anybody who wants it in Denver, but especially city government, the public, having exhibits at museums about extraterrestrial cultures, just generally bringing the issue right out in the open to the public.
And he's darn serious about this. He'll update you tomorrow on just how he's doing. But as of right now, doesn't look like the city of Denver wants to get this thing passed. A lot of Jeff's information came about with a video that he was able to see and witness by Stan Romanek, who was on our show, who claimed that a little alien was peering in on his daughter's bedroom window. And he had a picture of this, which we've had posted on coasttocoastam.com. I'm sure you've seen some of this on YouTube and the internet. Well, Stan agreed to take a polygraph test at our insistence, and we hired a well-known polygraph examiner out of the Denver area, and sure enough, Stan took the test on his own and did not pass several questions that the polygraph examiner asked him. Stan claims that he was under medication and that affected the outcome. Polygraph examiner stands by his report, and that's where that is at this point. You know, I get asked a lot on Coast to Coast, who are your favorite guests? I like them all. Dr. Roger Lear, here he is, one of the best. Hello, Roger. Rosemary Ellen Guiley. I like them all. Richard Holtman. But I also like a guy by the name of Jim Marrs. He originally started investigating the Kennedy assassination. Then he decided, you know what, there's something else with this alien agenda. And so he decided to investigate that. Here's a portion of an interview with Jim Marrs.
As you probably are well aware, Larry King has had, what, half a dozen programs now?
Oh, yeah, he's hot for this stuff.
He's really jumping on it now, and he's got military people, and it's really funny because in the past, usually they wouldn't give the microphone to anybody except just some Joe Blow out the countryside, and then they turn to some establishment authority figure like a colonel or a general, you know, who say, oh, no, there's nothing of that, folks. And today, though, they had the base commander from Bentwaters over in England. Understand Linda Bolton Howe has got some new information about that she's going to be presenting. They actually talked to other military people who talked about quite seriously and candidly about their UFO encounters. So it just certainly seems to me that we're entering a new era here of enlightenment, and now it seems like it's becoming acceptable to actually put the UFO issue on the table and discuss it in public, which is, you know, something we really haven't had up until about now.
So you have people like Jim Marrs starting to investigate this and pushing for it, so that's going to help with the answer. Some time ago, I was asked to be one of the speakers at an award ceremony for Dr. Roger Lear. And stand up for a second, Roger. Good place. There it is. Thank you for everything. And of course, my personality is kind of humorous sometimes. So while I was introducing Dr. Lear at his event, I decided, wouldn't this be novel? Because in the crowd was John Lear. So I pulled producer Tom aside and said, I'm going to pretend that I think the award is for John. And I want to watch everybody's faces when I do that, especially Roger's. So I was called up to introduce the award winner, whom they truly didn't mention, though we all knew it was Roger. And I went into this spiel about how John Lear deserved this award. Now, I'm doing this in all seriousness at the podium. The audience is in shock. They're starting to whisper to each other, he's lost it. By the way, that will happen to me one day on the air. You'll know when it's over for me. And Tom, we set it up this way, was to rush up and whisper in my ear. So while I'm talking about how John Lear deserves this award, this recognition, Up comes Tommy, whispers in my ear, and I said, "But I also think Dr. Roger Lear deserves this award." And there was another Lear story I told, but I won't say it today. But John Lear is a different story. Here's a guy who's been a pilot. He has been intricately involved in UFOs ever since he met Bob Lazar. He has witnessed flying saucers. He's an incredible individual, absolutely riveting. And we have a portion of John Lear's appearance on Coast to Coast.
John, I've always heard, for better or worse, that our government cut a deal with extraterrestrials for knowledge, for technology, and gave them the abductions, primarily because they figured they couldn't stop them anyway, so they might as well get something out of it. Have you heard anything like that?
Yeah, they cut the deal, and they got the technology, but they had no idea that they didn't have, that there was nothing they could do about it anyway. And they cut the deal saying, well, we'll only let you abduct this many. Well, of course, the fact is, George, Earth is not so much an experiment as a farm. They, whoever they are, if you want to call them aliens or whatever, they use this as a farm. They harvest, they manufacture souls, and we are just containers. This information comes from the yellow book that Bob read at the test site, and that's the deal. Now, whatever they have to do to keep us in line, they have to go to the government and say, look, we want you to help us keep our secret, and what we're going to do is give you some technology, and of course we'll limit our abductions. But, that's just the story.
How many do you think they've taken from this point, John?
Well, I used to say 1 in 10. I don't know whether it's any more or any less than that.
It's still a lot of people when you're talking about you're talking about 1 in 10 on this planet, right?
Yeah, they're not taking them. Understand? They're just monitoring. They take you once when you're about 3, once when you're about 7, and once when you're about 11 or 12, and then usually that's it. Now, what they do, I don't know, but that's when they just take and monitor you.
And you see the pattern that's developing here. People who are extremely credible, who are devoting their lives and careers to this issue, are coming forward and speaking, like John Lear, explaining what's going on. 40 years ago, people would have had him arrested. It's not happening anymore. I mean, just by the nature of conferences like this, and they're growing by leaps and bounds. More and more people who are professional or caring, who want to get to the bottom of this, are beginning to attend conferences like this. But when you hear someone like John Lear, who's again one of many, you've got to stop and say there's got to be something to this. I truly wish that more than just Larry King and Coast to Coast and some of the great alternative media shows that you hear would also get involved in doing this in a big way. But they're not yet, but they will one day. Nick Pope spent 25 years with the British Ministry of Defense. I believe he just spoke over the last few moments today. Truly a remarkable individual to talk about what the British government knows about UFOs. Here's Nick Pope.
Last year, the British Ministry of Defence began the process of releasing all the UFO files, the vast archive of material, some of it highly classified, going back many, many years. A policy decision was made that the time had come to release this and just let the people decide. There's nothing in there that says for sure that these things are extraterrestrial. The honest answer is we don't know. We simply don't know what they are. But the Ministry of Defence has these case files, hundreds of them, going back to the 50s. And the decision was made to release them. So I think that certainly attracted the interest of the mainstream media. And they said, well, hang on then, okay, what's in these files? And when they looked on these files, and I worked